Those guys that the ranking member talked about that did do a career in the military and was young enough to continue on to have I guess, a second career, which is kind of a laughable hypocrisy in that 22 years in the United States military active duty, I got a 55% retirement, and I believe in 5 years on this side I could get vested into an even greater retirement, so we can talk about that later. But as I sit here today, I am very concerned, and it takes me back to the quote by George Washington, where George Washington talked about how future generations will regard their service to this nation based upon how well we treat our veterans. And I recall my father, who was a World War II veteran, sitting down and talking to me about how great it would be to serve a career in the military. So when I look at a career in the military, when I look at people that are serving in our military, that is a defined contribution. And on the backside, I think that we should be giving them a defined benefit for that contribution because of what they do. Now, my first question is, do we still have the thrift savings program, the thrift savings plan for those men and women out there who, may just serve, 5 years, and while they're in a combat theater, they're allowed to go into that thrift savings plan so they can start putting away some money?
Yes, Congressman West, we continue to have the thrift savings plan.
Okay. Now, when we talk about comparing military service to the civilian sector, does the private sector, civilian sector have something that's equal to the Uniform Code of Military Justice?
No, sir, they do.
Okay. In the private sector, other than being a professional athlete, does your position and your ability to progress through the ranks depend on your physical abilities, and do we mandate that people have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning regardless of the conditions thereof to participate in physical training and activity?
Well, Congressman, I cannot comment on private sector employment. However, I can say that I think we all agree that the sacrifices are not the same for our military personnel as they are for our private sector civilians.
And I think that's my biggest concern, is that what we ask the men and women to do ever since those men answered the call of arms at Lexington and Concord is different from someone just going to a bank, or different from someone even coming here to work on Capitol Hill. So it's a very dangerous road when we start to go down the comparative analysis of the private sector or business sector to the United States military. So I ask that we be very careful about that, because I think that we're already starting to make some decisions thereof. How many people in the panel do you remember what happened after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, when we all of a sudden offered people money to exit the United States military? I do. Have you all done any research as far as the degradation of leadership, which is something that General Martin Dempsey talked about when he came and testified before us, I believe, a couple of weeks ago? Have we looked at that and what could happen as far as the progression of leadership?
Yes, I believe General Dempsey used the term hollowing of the force, and the Secretary has also talked about that is something we have learned many lessons from the past, and we will not do anything to our compensation system so that we end up with that hollowed force.
Okay. Any comments, Colonel?
I would just like to say I know what you're saying about that, and that from the enlisted side, you have senior enlisted people, sergeant major, whatever.
You need first sergeants and sergeant majors.
To nothing else. Those people combined with the junior officers who have hard charge and junior officer, but you also have a senior enlisted person who can have a wealth of experience with the military, 20 or 30 years, that they can explain things to the junior officer, can call on them for their experience, and that makes a very powerful combination.
And I will testify to that as a young, stupid second lieutenant when I first came in. Colonel, you have anything you want to add?
Yes, sir. I think so many of these things and these analyses treat people in the context of, quote, human resources, as if they were widgets in a box, instead of thinking, planning human beings. And when we model, I've got a lot of, doing a lot of studies working with RAND. I've spent a lot of time working with RAND. The problem with all these is the models don't include things you can't quantify, such as sacrifice, such as time away from home. They include everything, all the money people spend. You know, they can measure behavior, but they don't talk about, there's nothing in the model that accommodates the chance that we might go to war tomorrow. And you might be going to Iraq every other year for the next 10 years. There's nothing in there that accommodates for the fact that we might do the opposite. We might stop a war, or we might have a budget-driven drawdown, and you've built your plans on staying for a career, and all of a sudden we're going to force you out. And those are the things that, you know, service leaders are always seeking additional flexibility to be able to micromanage the force. And the only thing we know about those kinds of plans is whatever you plan for 5 or 10 years is going to be wrong, because the world is going to change your plan for you. And to us, that is one thing when you have a very powerful career incentive like 20-year retirement plan, it's very resistant to day-to-day manipulation. And that's a good thing.
Thank you. And I just hope that our fiscal irresponsibility on this side does not become borne on the backs of our men and women in uniform or their families. And with that being said,